We're in Honolulu. Look at this view. My mother's voice came through my phone as the video call connected, showing her standing on a balcony overlooking turquoise waters. Why didn't you come to the airport yesterday, sweetie? The saccharine tone in Diane Mitchell's voice made my stomach twist into knots. I stood frozen in the middle of Dallas International Airport, my carefully packed suitcase beside me, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. A notification banner slid across the top of my screen, a new Instagram post from my sister Rebecca, already tagged at the Hawaiian resort with our parents. The truth hit me like a physical blow. They had deliberately lied about our flight date. My name is Olivia Mitchell, 32 years old, and I never thought my own parents would stoop this low. Look who's here with us, my mother continued, turning the camera to show my father lounging on a deck chair, cocktail in hand. Walter Mitchell, 60, waved at the camera with a broad smile, the same man who just 3 weeks ago had barely been able to move his fingers due to his severe arthritis. The arthritis I'd paid $35,000 to treat. I'd been looking forward to this family vacation for months, desperately needing a break after an exhausting quarter at my marketing firm. I'd just finished leading a major campaign launch, running on coffee and determination for weeks. This trip was supposed to be my reward, a chance to relax and reconnect with my family. What do you mean, yesterday? I managed to say, my voice trembling as I watched a happy family with matching luggage walk past me. You told me the flight was today at 2 p.m. I have the WhatsApp messages to prove it. I quickly minimized the video call to pull up our chat history, my hands shaking. There it was, plain as day, my mother clearly stating May 15th for our departure. The bustling airport suddenly felt suffocating. Travelers rushed past me, their excited chatter and laughter only highlighting my growing devastation. A child squealed with joy nearby, clutching a stuffed dolphin with Hawaii embroidered on its belly. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of other people's happiness. Oh, sweetie, there must have been some confusion, my mother replied, but the slight hesitation in her voice betrayed her. I watched her share a quick glance with my father off camera. Your sister made it just fine. We're all settled in at the resort now. Of course, Rebecca made it. At 34, my sister was still their priority, their golden child. The aspiring actress who'd been auditioning 4 years while living at home. I caught a glimpse of her in the background of the video, sunglasses perched on her head, taking a selfie with the ocean behind her. I should have known something was off when they insisted on handling all the flight arrangements themselves. Don't worry about anything, my father had said. Just focus on your big marketing presentation. I have airline miles to use, and will take care of everything. The same parents who relied on me to help pay their bills somehow couldn't trust me to book my own ticket. This wasn't confusion, Mom, I said, my voice growing stronger as anger replaced shock. The couple standing next to me at the check-in counter glanced over, but I was beyond caring. You deliberately gave me the wrong date. You never wanted me on this trip, did you? The silence on the other end was deafening. In the background, I heard the clink of ice in a glass. Now, Olivia, don't be dramatic, my mother finally said, her tone shifting from sweet to dismissive in an instant. These things happen. My phone pinged with a notification. A text from my friend Megan, how's the family vacation going? Send beach pics. The irony stung like salt in a wound. I ended the call, my hand trembling so badly I nearly dropped my phone. Around me, families embraced as they prepared for their own vacations, parents helping children with their backpacks, couples holding hands as they rolled their luggage toward security. And there I stood alone, betrayed by the people who should have loved me most. The irony wasn't lost on me. Just last week, I'd transferred $3,000 to my parents' account specifically for this trip. For the past 2 years, I'd been sending them money every month, helping them maintain their lifestyle after my dad's early retirement from his banking job. They relied on my financial support for everything from his medical bills to groceries, and still, they chose to exclude me from our family vacation. Looking at my useless suitcase with its carefully packed summer dresses and new swimsuit items I'd splurged on despite my usually frugal habits, I felt tears welling up. But more than sadness, a burning anger rose inside me, unfamiliar in its intensity. I tapped on Rebecca's Instagram post, a family selfie captioned "Family Vacation Begins." #blessed, #ohana, #paradise. My parents and sister, all smiles, no mention of my absence. This wasn't just about a missed vacation, it was about years of manipulation and favoritism. Years of emptying my savings account while they emptied my emotional reserves. And standing there in the airport, surrounded by strangers heading to their destinations, I made a decision that would change everything. At the airport, continued, 2 months ago, when they first mentioned planning a family trip to Hawaii, I'd felt a flutter of genuine excitement. Finally, a chance to spend quality time together away from the stress of work and financial discussions. My parents had insisted on handling all the arrangements. "Don't worry about anything," my father had said during our Sunday video call, his face unusually animated. "I still have all those airline miles from my banking days. We'll take care of everything. You just focus on that big marketing campaign you're launching. We want this to be special," my mother had added, her voice warm with what I'd thought was affection. A proper Mitchell family vacation. Like a fool, I'd believed them. I even transferred an extra $3,000 to their account specifically to help cover the resort expenses, on top of my regular monthly support. "It's the least I can do," I told them, imagining lazy days on the beach and family dinners watching the sunset. I'd pictured us reconnecting, sharing stories, maybe even having heart-to-heart conversations that didn't revolve around their financial needs. I thought maybe this trip would be different. That they would finally see me as more than just their financial safety net. That we could be a real family. Instead, here I was, standing in an empty check-in line at Dallas International Airport with a packed suitcase and a broken heart. The Hawaiian Airlines desk attendant had already confirmed what I knew deep down. There was no reservation in my name for today. There never had been. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. Rebecca had just posted a new Instagram story, a boomerang of her and our parents toasting with colorful cocktails garnished with tiny paper umbrellas. The resort's infinity pool stretched behind them, melting into the blue Hawaiian ocean. The caption read, "Family Vacation Begins. Day 1 in Paradise. Missing you, sis. Wish you could have made it." #ohana, #blessed. The #ohana felt like a deliberate slap in the face. Family means nobody gets left behind, except Olivia, apparently. The rage that filled me in that moment was like nothing I'd ever experienced. Not a hot flash of anger, but something cold and clarifying. Standing there in the airport, staring at Rebecca's perfectly filtered photo, something inside me finally snapped. The cord of obligation that had bound me to my family for years, that had drained my bank account and my spirit, severed completely. I sat down on a nearby bench and started scrolling through past WhatsApp messages from my parents. With my emotions cleared, the pattern became crystal clear. Every conversation about the trip had been carefully orchestrated to ensure I'd miss it. The flight's at 2 p.m. on the 15th, my mother had texted last week. I found the message and took a screenshot. But then I switched to Instagram and looked at Rebecca's story again. There, visible in the corner of a photo from yesterday, was their boarding pass, May 14th, clear as day. They hadn't made a mistake. They'd planned this deception down to the last detail, making sure to have me send money before executing their scheme. My phone rang again, the special ringtone I'd assigned to my father. I almost let it go to voicemail, but then decided I wanted to hear what he had to say. "Olivia," he started, his voice stern with that banker's authority he'd never lost in retirement. It was the voice he used when I was a child being scolded for interrupting one of Rebecca's performances. Your mother is very upset by your attitude. We made an honest mistake with the dates, and you're turning this into a drama. You're a grown woman with an MBA, you should understand these things happen in travel. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. An honest mistake? Then why did Rebecca know the correct date? Why did you insist on booking everything yourselves? And why do I have written confirmation from you that the flight was today? Now listen here, he began, his voice taking on that dangerous edge that used to frighten me as a child. No, Dad, you listen, I cut him off. The old Olivia would never have dared interrupt him. I just checked my bank statements. Last week, I sent you $3,000 specifically for this trip. That's on top of the $35,000 I sent for your arthritis treatments 3 weeks ago, the condition that seems to have miraculously improved enough for you to play golf, according to Rebecca's latest post. I pulled up my banking app as I spoke, looking at the transaction history. Was that money a mistake too? Or did you just take it knowing you'd leave me behind? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. I could hear him breathing, calculating his next move like he was considering a risky investment. Olivia, he finally said, his voice softer now, trying a different approach. The pivot from intimidation to manipulation was so familiar it was almost comforting in its predictability. You know we're on a fixed income since my retirement. We needed that money for the trip. You're doing so well with your marketing career. You understand about making sacrifices for family, don't you? That's what family does. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. A couple seated nearby glanced at me with concern, but I was beyond caring about appearances. Sacrifices for family? My voice cracked. I've been making sacrifices for years. I've given up my savings, my dreams of buying my own home, my chance at a relationship because I work constantly to support all of you. I live in a tiny apartment while you keep your house. I drive a 10-year-old car while you and Mom just bought a new SUV with my money. And this is how you repay me? Don't be selfish, he snapped, abandoning the soft approach as quickly as he'd adopted it. Your sister needed this vacation. She's been under so much stress with her acting career. You know how important this is to her. And her acting career? I interrupted, my voice rising enough that the concerned couple gathered their bags and moved away. You mean the hobby you've been funding with my money while she lives rent-free in your house? The auditions that supposedly happen in California while she's actually working part-time at a coffee shop? The headshots and acting classes that somehow cost thousands while I work 60-hour weeks to support all of you? That's enough, he shouted, his control finally breaking. I won't stand for this disrespect. You've changed, Olivia. Money has made you cruel. We gave you everything growing up. In that moment, something shifted inside me. The hurt was still there, but now it was hardening into resolve, like concrete setting. You're right about one thing, Dad. I have changed, and things are about to change even more. I ended the call and immediately opened my banking app. It was time to close the Bank of Olivia permanently. Later that day, the drive home from the airport was a blur of anger and determination. My unsuable Hawaiian Airlines boarding pass lay crumpled in the cup holder of my car, a $735 expense I couldn't get refunded. I spent the evening documenting everything, screenshots of WhatsApp messages, bank transfers, a detailed spreadsheet of every penny I'd given them over the past 2 years. Each entry brought back memories, $7,000 for Dad's retirement party that Mom had insisted needed to be at an exclusive country club, $2,500 for Rebecca's professional camera for her acting portfolio, $4,200 for Mom's dental work, $35,000 for Dad's specialized arthritis treatment, the treatment that had apparently worked miracles, judging by his golf swing in today's photos. The total made me feel physically sick, $47,800. That's what my parents' love had cost me, enough for a substantial down payment on a house in a nice Dallas neighborhood. Money I'd never see again. The next morning, I walked into my bank and closed the joint account I'd opened specifically to transfer money to them. Then I called my company's HR department to remove my parents as beneficiaries from my life insurance policy. With each step, I felt lighter, as if I was finally breaking free from invisible chains that had been weighing me down for years. That's when the messages started flooding in. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications. First came the guilt trips from my mother. "I can't sleep knowing you're upset with us," her text read. "This is tearing our family apart. How could you be so heartless? After everything we've done for you?" Then Rebecca joined in with a series of increasingly angry messages. "OMG, you're being so dramatic. It was just a miscommunication with the dates. Mom's literally crying every day because of you. Way to ruin our vacation. Some of us actually need this break, you know?" But it was my father's message that really showed their true colors. "We raised you better than this. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Your mother needs her medication refilled this week, $4.30. Don't you dare abandon your responsibilities to this family. We gave you life." I stared at my phone, amazed by their audacity. My responsibilities to the family? What about their responsibility to treat me with basic respect? What about a parent's responsibility to support their child, not the other way around? Instead of responding individually to their messages, I drafted a clear, firm email. "Dear Mom, Dad, and Rebecca, I've done a lot of thinking since yesterday. The Hawaii incident wasn't a miscommunication, it was a deliberate choice to exclude me while still taking my money. I have proof in the form of messages, social media posts, and bank transfers that I'm prepared to share with extended family if necessary. This pattern of behavior ends now. Effective immediately, I am cutting off all financial support. The money I've provided was a choice, not an obligation. You'll need to find another way to cover your expenses. Dad, your retirement fund should be sufficient if properly managed. Mom, your teacher's pension is still active. Rebecca, at 34, it's time to support yourself fully with your coffee shop job, the one you've been hiding from me while pretending to be in California for auditions. Do not contact me about money again. I need time and space to reevaluate our relationship." Olivia. Within minutes of sending my email, my phone exploded with notifications, calls, texts, and voicemails pouring in like a digital flood. My mother left 3 sobbing voicemails in succession, each more dramatic than the last, wailing about how they'd lose their house without my support. Rebecca's messages oscillated between rage and guilt-tripping. "You selfish bitch. After everything they've done for you," followed by "Mom, can't stop crying. Is this really what you want? To destroy our family?" My father's approach was more calculated. His texts grew increasingly threatening with each hour that passed without a response from me. "You'll regret this decision, Olivia. There will be consequences if you don't come to your senses. We know things about you that your fancy marketing colleagues wouldn't appreciate." I blocked them all: calls, texts, emails, and social media. The sudden silence was both terrifying and liberating. That evening, as I sat alone in my apartment staring at a meal I couldn't eat, guilt began to creep in like a familiar toxic fog. Years of conditioning had taught me to put their needs first, to believe I was selfish for having boundaries, that family obligation trumped personal well-being. My mother's voice echoed in my head: "Family takes care of family, Olivia. No matter what." I found myself reaching for my phone, fingers hovering over the block settings. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it really was just a miscommunication about the flight dates. But then I remembered standing in that airport, the crushing realization that they had methodically planned this betrayal. I remembered the Instagram photos, my father golfing despite his debilitating arthritis, my mother shopping at boutiques while claiming they couldn't afford groceries, Rebecca lounging at the pool while I worked 60-hour weeks to fund her acting career. I put my phone down and slept better that night than I had in years. The next day at work, I was reviewing campaign metrics when my assistant knocked on my door. "There's someone here to see you," she said, looking uncertain. "She says she's your aunt? Valerie Brooks?" I was immediately on guard. Did my parents send her? When Valerie walked into my office, I braced myself for more guilt trips, more manipulation, more pressure to resume the financial support. At 55, my father's sister carried herself with the confident posture of someone who managed other people's money for a living. Her tailored suit and practical bob suggested a woman who didn't tolerate nonsense, a stark contrast to my mother's carefully cultivated fragility. "I heard what happened," she said, sitting down across from me. Her voice was neutral, giving nothing away. "Walter and Diane asked me to talk some sense into you." I straightened my spine, preparing for battle. "I've made my decision, Valerie. I'm not changing my mind." What she said next completely blindsided me. "What they did was cruel, Olivia. And it wasn't just the Hawaii trip." She leaned forward, her eyes steady on mine. "I've watched them take advantage of your kindness for years. The way they've manipulated you, extracted money from you while lavishing everything on Rebecca." She shook her head in disgust. "It's time someone in this family told you the truth. You deserve better than this." Tears welled up in my eyes before I could stop them. I'd spent so many years believing I was alone in seeing the patterns, that maybe I was the problem, the ungrateful daughter who didn't understand family obligation. Finally, someone in my family saw me, really saw me. Valerie reached across the desk and squeezed my hand. "I should have said something years ago, but Walter has a way of." She trailed off, and I saw in her face the same conflict I'd battled, family loyalty versus truth. "They'll try everything to pull you back in," she warned. "The guilt, the health scares, the threats. Walter's been doing this his entire life. It's how he controlled our parents too. Stay strong. You're doing the right thing." 2 weeks after sending that email, I discovered something that made the Hawaii incident look like a minor slight. I was eating a salad at my desk when my phone lit up with Valerie's name. "Olivia," she said without preamble, her voice tight with concern. "I need to show you something important. Can you come to my condo after work?" When I arrived at her downtown Dallas high-rise, she had a stack of papers spread across her glass dining table. The evening skyline glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows behind her, but her expression was grim. "Your father came to me last week asking for a loan, a substantial one. He let slip some things that didn't add up with what I know about their finances, so I did some digging." What she showed me made my blood run cold. Bank statements, loan applications, credit card bills, and online gambling receipts painted a disturbing picture. My parents hadn't just been using my money for basic expenses or even Rebecca's supposed career. They'd been living far beyond their means, counting on my support to cover an increasingly extravagant lifestyle. "Look at this," Valerie pointed to a credit card statement with my name on it. "They took out a new card in your name 3 months ago. Have you checked your credit report recently?" My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and downloaded my credit report app. There it was, a $150,000 credit limit card I never knew existed, already carrying a $127,645 balance. Purchases at luxury retailers, cash advances, payments to online gambling sites. They had used my social security number and personal information to open it. "That's identity theft," Valerie said quietly, her accountant's precision making the words even more devastating. "It's a federal crime, Olivia." I felt like I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt sideways. How could they do this? I'm their daughter. "There's more," Valerie continued, sliding another document toward me. "Remember that story about Rebecca's acting career in California? She's not even going to auditions. She's been living at home this whole time, working part-time at a coffee shop downtown. I found her LinkedIn profile that she keeps separate from her family connections. She showed me Rebecca's hidden professional profile on her tablet. My sister, dressed in a Starbucks apron, listed her job as a barista team lead with a start date 3 years ago. The money they claimed was for her headshots, acting classes, and LA apartment? Your father's been using it primarily for online poker and sports betting. Look at these withdrawal patterns. The room seemed to spin as pieces fell into place. The constant requests for more money, the vague explanations about Rebecca's big break just around the corner, the guilt trips when I asked questions about how the money was being spent. It wasn't just emotional manipulation, it was systematic fraud. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Please, sweetie, we need to talk. Your father's having chest pains from all the stress. The doctor says it could be his heart. If anything happens to him, it'll be your fault. Call us immediately." I showed Valerie the message. She shook her head, lips pressed into a thin line. More manipulation. They're desperate because their house of cards is falling apart without your money. Walter pulled the exact same heart problem stunt when our parents finally cut him off after he remortgaged their house without permission. What should I do? I whispered, staring at the evidence of my parents' betrayal spread across the table. You have 2 choices, Valerie said, her voice gentle but firm. You can press charges for the identity theft, which would likely mean criminal proceedings, or you can handle this privately with legal help. But either way, you need to protect yourself. This isn't just about money anymore. They've committed fraud. I thought about years of sacrifice, of putting their needs before mine, of believing their lies about Rebecca's career and my father's health issues. The chest pains, the tears, the guilt trips, it was all part of their game, their way of keeping me tethered to their financial needs. I want to talk to them one last time, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. Face to face. But I need you there with me. Valerie nodded. I'll set it up. But first, we need to gather all the evidence and freeze your credit immediately. They've shown you who they really are, Olivia. Believe them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the dreams I'd put on hold to support them. The house I'd planned to buy in that neighborhood with good schools, the international vacations I'd canceled when emergencies arose, the retirement account I should have been building. They hadn't just stolen my money, they'd stolen years of my life. But as I lay there watching shadows move across my ceiling, something else occurred to me. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly clear-headed. The fog of manipulation and guilt that had clouded my judgment was lifting, and in its place was a steel-like resolve I'd never experienced before. They wanted to play games? Fine. But this time, I would be the one making the rules. The confrontation was set for Saturday afternoon at Valerie's condo. I spent the morning with a lawyer who specialized in identity theft and financial fraud, understanding my options. The attorney was clear. What my parents had done was criminal, not just unethical. I prepared a folder with all the evidence, the fraudulent credit card statements, bank transfers, text messages, screenshots of Rebecca's secret LinkedIn profile versus her fictitious acting career. Everything I needed them to understand that their game was over. As I drove to Valerie's, my phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. "Way to break Dad's heart, you selfish bitch. He's been good to you your whole life. Don't expect me to pick up the pieces when you realize what you've thrown away." I turned off my phone completely. No more distractions. No more manipulation. Today was about truth and consequences. When my parents arrived at Valerie's stylish high-rise condo, Rebecca was with them. She looked nothing like the carefree influencer in those Hawaii photos. Her face was drawn and guilty, her carefully maintained social media image nowhere to be seen. They filed into Valerie's sleek living room like defendants approaching a sentencing, my father's usually commanding presence diminished. "Thank you for coming," I began, my voice steady despite the hammering in my chest. I gestured to the leather portfolio folder on the glass coffee table. I've discovered some things we need to discuss. Olivia, my mother interrupted, tears already forming in her expertly made-up eyes. She reached toward me with manicured fingers. Before you say anything, you need to know. No, I cut her off, raising my hand. I'm talking now. I pulled out the credit card statements and spread them across the table like a dealer at a blackjack table. Would anyone like to explain this? The color drained from my father's face as he recognized his signature on the application. Rebecca looked genuinely confused, leaning forward to see the documents. My mother jumped in quickly, her voice taking on that wounded tone she'd perfected over the years. It was an emergency, sweetie. We were going to tell you. Your father's medical bills? An emergency? I laid out more papers methodically, each one a piece of the puzzle. Like the $4,300 in online poker losses last month? Or the maxed-out shopping sprees at Nordstrom? Or maybe Rebecca's fake acting career in California? Rebecca's head snapped up, her eyes widening. What do you mean, fake? I turned to her, seeing for the first time how much my parents had manipulated her too. You really don't know? They've been telling me you're in California pursuing acting. That's where hundreds of thousands of my dollars supposedly went, your headshots, acting classes, apartment rent, living expenses. I slid her fabricated budget across the table, $3,200 monthly for an apartment that didn't exist, $1,500 for acting classes she never took, $800 for headshots with photographers who weren't real. Rebecca looked at our parents in shock, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been working at Starbucks downtown for 3 years. You told me Olivia refused to help with my college tuition when I wanted to go back to school. You said she thought I was a failure. The room erupted in chaos. Rebecca started crying, mascara tracking down her cheeks. My mother launched into a convoluted explanation about protecting both daughters and what's best for the family. My father stood up, his banker's composure crumbling as his face flushed red with anger. Enough, he shouted, pounding his fist on Valerie's expensive coffee table. We did what we had to do. You don't understand what it's like to maintain our lifestyle, our position in the community. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said, my voice ice cold as I pulled out my final piece of evidence, the credit report showing $127,645 in fraudulent charges. You committed identity theft. That's a federal crime with a mandatory prison sentence. I have 2 choices here: press charges and watch you both go to prison, or handle this privately with a legally binding repayment agreement. Your decision. My mother collapsed into theatrical sobs, sliding from the couch to her knees. You wouldn't. We're your parents. After all we've sacrificed for you. Parents don't steal from their children, Valerie interjected, speaking for the first time. Her accountant's precision made each word cut deeper. Parents don't lie and manipulate and commit fraud. Walter, you and Diane have gone too far this time. Just then, my father clutched his chest and staggered backwards, his face contorting. My heart, he gasped dramatically, reaching for the wall to steady himself. Call an ambulance. For a moment, I almost moved to help him. The lifetime of conditioning to respond to his needs nearly overrode my judgment. But then I saw my mother's face, not panic or concern for her husband, but calculation, her eyes darting to gauge my reaction. This was their final play, their attempt to regain control through fear and guilt. No, I said firmly, not moving from my seat. No more manipulation. Dad, we both know there's nothing wrong with your heart, the same heart that was healthy enough for golf in Hawaii last week. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign this repayment agreement for every penny you stole. You're going to close that fraudulent credit card today, and you're going to leave me alone. And if we refuse, my father asked, his heart attack mysteriously forgotten as he straightened up, dropping the act entirely. Then I'll press charges for identity theft, wire fraud, and elder financial abuse for what you did to Grandma before she died, I replied, referencing another financial scandal Valerie had uncovered. "You can explain your actions to a federal judge. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic to parents who stole over $100,000 from their daughter." The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca stared wide-eyed between us, witnessing the collapse of the family mythology. Finally, my father nodded, defeated for perhaps the first time in his life. My mother stared at the floor, her tears suddenly dry. "And Rebecca?" Rebecca looked at me like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. "I had no idea," she whispered. "I swear, Olivia." As they signed the repayment agreement my lawyer had prepared, I felt no satisfaction, only a deep, hollow sadness for the family I thought I had, the loving parents I'd spent my entire life trying to please, the sister bond I'd imagined despite our differences. Epilogue: in the weeks that followed, my parents' carefully constructed facade crumbled completely. Without my financial support, they were forced to sell their house in the upscale neighborhood and move into a small apartment across town. The repayment agreement meant most of their retirement income went to paying back what they'd stolen from me. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. Rebecca moved in with Valerie temporarily while she figured out her next steps. She called me one evening, her voice small and uncertain on the phone. "I had no idea what they were doing," she said. "All these years, they've been playing us against each other. I thought you didn't care about me, that you were too busy with your perfect career to help your failure of a sister. Mom and Dad told me so many things that weren't true. I'm so sorry, Olivia." Her apology meant something, but it couldn't erase years of damage and resentment. Still, it was a start. We agreed to meet for coffee the following week. My parents made one final attempt to manipulate me. They showed up at my office unannounced, causing a scene in the lobby. My mother clutched at the receptionist's desk, tears streaming down her face. "We'll lose everything," she wailed loudly enough for the entire floor to hear. "Our own daughter is punishing us. After all we've sacrificed for you." I stood my ground, painfully aware of my concerned colleagues watching from the hallway. "You lost me," I said calmly, maintaining eye contact with both of them. "That's the only thing that matters. And it was your choice." Security escorted them out, my father threatening legal action the entire way. But we both knew all the legal leverage was on my side now. As I watched them leave, I felt nothing but peace. The guilt that had weighed me down for years was gone, replaced by a lightness I'd never known was possible. I was no longer their ATM, their emotional punching bag, or their victim. That evening, I booked a trip to Hawaii, just for me. As I confirmed the reservation at the same resort they'd enjoyed without me, I smiled at the irony. They had tried to exclude me from a family vacation, but in doing so, they had given me something priceless: freedom. 3 months later, I stood on a beach in Maui, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The warm sand between my toes and the gentle crash of waves created a peaceful backdrop for my thoughts. This wasn't the family vacation I'd originally imagined, but it was exactly what I needed. My phone, blissfully quiet without the constant barrage of guilt-tripping messages, buzzed with a text from Valerie. "They're finally moving out of the house this weekend," she wrote. "Rebecca's enrolled in community college to finish her business degree. She's asking about having coffee with you when you're back." I took a deep breath of salt air and replied, "Tell her I'm open to it." The repayment plan was working. Slowly but surely, my parents had sold most of their possessions: the luxury cars, my mother's designer clothes, my father's collection of rare whiskeys, and every month a check arrived from them without fail. Not because they were sorry, but because they had no choice. The fraud charges I'd held back would surface if they missed a single payment. My mother still tried sending emotional emails through different accounts. "We're eating ramen noodles while you're living in luxury. Is this what you wanted for your own parents?" I deleted them without responding. Their guilt trips had lost their power over me. At work, I'd earned another promotion to senior marketing director. The energy I used to spend managing my parents' chaos now went into building my own life and career. I'd even started looking at houses in a neighborhood I loved, a dream I'd put on hold for years while funding their lifestyle. Standing there on the beach, watching the Hawaiian sunset I'd paid for myself, I finally understood. Sometimes the happiest endings don't involve forgiveness or reconciliation. Sometimes they're about walking away and choosing yourself, about setting boundaries even when it hurts. My parents had planned this Hawaii trip to hurt me, to exclude me while taking my money. But instead, they'd set me free. Megan, everyone's staying home due to the snowstorm. The roads are too dangerous to drive. Christmas dinner is canceled. Stay safe and warm. My mother Elaine's text glowed on my phone screen. I stared at it, feeling a knot of disappointment in my chest, but I nodded to myself with reluctant understanding. Winter weather in this part of the country could turn treacherous quickly. What I couldn't possibly know then was that this seemingly innocent message would unravel years of family deception and completely transform my life. My name is Megan, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a hospital administrator, and until last Christmas, I believed I was simply the odd one out in my family, the serious, career-focused sister who never quite meshed with their boisterous social gatherings. My younger sister, Heather, was always the golden child, the one who could do absolutely no wrong in our parents' eyes. Just yesterday, Heather had messaged me, getting everything ready for tomorrow. Can't wait to see everyone. I'd spent the past week carefully preparing handmade gifts for everyone, knitted scarves for my parents, a personalized photo album for my grandmother, and special bath products I knew Heather would love. Each gift wrapped with care, a silent plea for their approval. That Christmas morning, resigned to spending the holiday alone, I arranged my small house for a solitary celebration. I made myself a large mug of hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, queued up my favorite holiday movies, and tried desperately to maintain a positive attitude despite the hollow feeling in my chest. I even put on the festive sweater I'd planned to wear to the family gathering, as if dressing the part might somehow make me feel less alone. Around 3 p.m., while nursing my second cup of cocoa, I absent-mindedly scrolled through Facebook when my stomach dropped like an elevator in free fall. A live video was playing from my cousin Jessica's account, Perfect Family Christmas at Heather's. #blessed, #family traditions, #perfect Christmas. The timestamp showed it had started streaming just 20 minutes ago. The video panned across my entire family, Douglas and Elaine, my parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, even my elderly grandmother who couldn't travel in this weather, all gathered around Heather's trendy downtown apartment dining table. They were laughing, wearing coordinated holiday sweaters, raising glasses in a toast. The camera then moved toward the large floor-to-ceiling windows, showing a completely clear day outside, bright sunshine glinting off parked cars with not a single snowflake in sight. There was no storm. There never had been. My hands trembled violently as I clicked through more posts. Jessica's Instagram stories showed my father Douglas carving the turkey with practiced precision, my mother arranging her signature Christmas cookies on the antique platter I'd given her last year, my nieces and nephews tearing through presents. Then came a notification, a friend texting, "Aren't you with your family today?" Just saw Jessica's posts. I immediately took screenshots of everything, the messages, the posts, the clear blue sky visible through Heather's apartment windows. The dangerous snowstorm was a complete fabrication, a convenient excuse crafted to avoid telling me directly that I wasn't welcome at their picture-perfect family Christmas. A wave of nausea washed over me as the truth crystallized in my mind. All those canceled family brunches, those spontaneous weekend gatherings I'd missed, how many had actually happened without me? The birthday dinner 2 months ago that was postponed due to my father's work emergency that somehow resolved in time for everyone but me to attend? The summer barbecue that was rained out despite the sunny photos that appeared on my sister's Instagram the very same day? How long had they been orchestrating this elaborate system of exclusion while pretending to care about my feelings? The next morning, my phone lit up with my mother's name. I answered, my throat tight with hurt and anger. "Hi, sweetheart." Elaine's voice chirped with rehearsed cheerfulness. "Hope you had a nice, quiet Christmas by yourself. We really missed having you there. This snowstorm was just dreadful, wasn't it?" The casual cruelty of her words, layered atop the blatant lie, made my free hand clench into a tight fist. My knuckles turned white as I stared at Jessica's Facebook posts still open on my laptop, undeniable evidence of their perfect family gathering from which I had been deliberately excluded. Phone call with Elaine, really? I managed to keep my voice steady, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. Because Jessica's social media posts show everyone having a wonderful time at Heather's apartment. Everyone except me. The silence on the other end stretched so long I almost checked if the call had dropped. I could picture my mother's face perfectly, that familiar expression she gets when caught in a lie, eyes darting slightly, lips pursed while her mind races to formulate excuses. "Oh, well," she finally stammered, her voice suddenly higher-pitched. "Heather organized it last minute after the weather report changed, and you know how you can be at family gatherings, Megan, always so quiet and making everyone uncomfortable with your intensity. We just thought." "Thought what?" I pressed, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached. "That it would be better to deliberately lie to me? To make me spend Christmas completely alone while pretending everyone else was doing the same? To coordinate an elaborate deception involving the entire family?" "Don't be so dramatic," my mother sighed with that dismissive tone I knew all too well. "We were trying to spare your feelings and avoid any awkwardness. You know how important it was to Heather that everything be perfect for her Instagram. The lighting in her photos had to be just right." That's when everything crystallized in my mind with painful clarity. All the past canceled events, the times plans had mysteriously fallen through, the family gatherings I'd only discover through social media posts days later. This wasn't just a one-time Christmas mishap. This was a systematic pattern of exclusion that had been going on for years. "How many times?" I asked, my voice dropping to barely a whisper as tears burned behind my eyes. "How many other gatherings have you lied to me about, Mom?" Another telling silence followed. "Then, Megan, you're being oversensitive as usual. This is exactly why." "Why what?" I cut her off, my voice gaining strength from somewhere deep inside me. "Why you exclude me? Why you pretend I don't exist unless you need something? Why Heather gets to be the perfect daughter with her 10,000 Instagram followers while I'm treated like an inconvenient obligation?" "That's not fair," my mother protested, indignation creeping into her voice. "We love you both equally. It's just that Heather actually puts in the effort to be part of the family. You're always so busy with your hospital work." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that surprised even me. "Busy with work? You mean busy paying off the student loans I took for the medical career path you pushed me into? Busy taking 3 full weeks off to care for Dad after his back surgery while Heather posted a single selfie with him and left? You mean that kind of busy?" "Listen," my mother's voice turned icy and stern. "If you're going to be like this, maybe it's better if we give each other some space. Call me when you're ready to be reasonable and stop attacking your sister." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there in the sudden silence of my living room, staring at my phone screen as 34 years of memories suddenly shifted into sharp, painful focus like a camera lens finally finding its proper setting. Every excuse, every dismissal, every misunderstanding, every time I'd been made to feel like I was imagining things, it had all been intentional. I wasn't the problem. I never had been. That was the moment something broke inside me, the moment I stopped making excuses for them, the moment I finally saw the truth with crystal clarity. I didn't have a family. I had people who shared my DNA but treated me like an afterthought, a backup plan, an ATM when needed. Later that evening, after that phone call, something within me fundamentally changed. The constant need for their approval evaporated like morning dew under a harsh sun. I was done being the family doormat, done being the reliable one they could exploit while excluding me from their picture-perfect family moments. With hands that no longer trembled, I opened my laptop and navigated to our family group chat, the one that included my parents, sister, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone who had been at that Christmas dinner. My fingers flew across the keyboard as 34 years of pent-up feelings poured out in carefully chosen words. I've seen the videos and photos from yesterday's Christmas dinner, I wrote. The dinner I was explicitly told was cancelled due to a dangerous snowstorm that evidently never existed. I want you all to know exactly what was done here. This wasn't simply excluding me from a family gathering. You collectively coordinated an elaborate lie to make me spend Christmas alone while pretending everyone else was doing the same. I attached screenshots of my mother's "everyone's staying home due to the snowstorm" messages alongside Jessica's Facebook Live video showing the clear, sunny day through Heather's apartment windows. I added photos of the handmade gifts I'd prepared for everyone, still sitting wrapped under my small tree. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, my heart pounding but my mind strangely calm. The responses began flooding in almost immediately, notifications pinging one after another. My Aunt Judith claimed they must have forgotten to tell me the plans had changed. Uncle Robert suggested I was making a mountain out of a molehill. Jessica, whose live stream had exposed their collective lie, quickly deleted all her Christmas posts and privately messaged me saying I was causing unnecessary family drama right after such a beautiful holiday. Then came Heather's response, a paragraphs-long, condescending message about how I never make any real effort at family gatherings and how she just wanted one perfect holiday without someone bringing down the mood. She even had the breathtaking audacity to suggest that excluding me was actually for my own benefit because I obviously don't enjoy family gatherings anyway and they were just respecting my preference for solitude. But it was my parents' reaction that truly revealed who they were at their core. Instead of offering even a token apology, they went immediately on the offensive. My mother began calling our mutual family friends, spinning an elaborate story about how I was having some sort of mental health episode and needed everyone's understanding during this difficult time. My father, Douglas, sent me a stern message about respecting family privacy and how publicly airing our dirty laundry was completely unacceptable for someone your age. "You've really done it now," Heather messaged privately. "Mom's crying. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. Everyone's holiday is completely ruined, and it's all because you couldn't just accept that maybe you're the problem. This is exactly why we didn't want you at Christmas in the first place." Family confrontation. I felt like I'd been transported to some bizarre alternate dimension. They had deliberately excluded me, coordinated an elaborate lie involving the entire family, yet somehow I was cast as the villain simply for exposing their deception. The more I stood up for myself and pointed out their behavior, the more aggressively they twisted the narrative. When I refused to back down and apologize for something I hadn't done, they escalated their tactics to frightening levels. My mother Elaine began showing up at the hospital where I worked, unannounced and emotional, causing uncomfortable scenes in the lobby that left my colleagues whispering. Heather ramped up her social media campaign, posting vague but pointed updates about toxic relationships and choosing peace over family drama that her followers eagerly commented on with supportive messages. My father Douglas called with an explicit threat to cut me out of his will entirely if I didn't get back in line and stop this nonsense. Their unified front of intimidation tactics didn't frighten me as they'd intended. Instead, their desperate actions only confirmed what I had finally realized with painful clarity. This wasn't a loving family protecting itself from a difficult member. This was a toxic system frantically scrambling to maintain control over someone who had finally stopped playing by their unspoken rules. I knew then that simply exposing their Christmas lie wasn't enough. I needed to completely sever the invisible chains of manipulation they'd wrapped around me since childhood. Little did they know, as they escalated their public smear campaign against me, I was already forming a plan that would show them exactly what happens when you push away the one person who had always been there for them, supporting them both emotionally and financially. Patricia's revelation. One afternoon about a week after my confrontational group message, my phone lit up with a text from an unexpected source. Patricia, a family friend who had worked as my parents' personal accountant years ago before retiring. The message was simple but urgent. Megan, I've been seeing what's happening with your family all over social media. There's something you need to know that I've kept quiet about for too long. Can we meet privately? My curiosity piqued. I agreed to meet her at her home rather than a public place, sensing from her cautious tone that whatever she needed to share required discretion. When I arrived at her modest suburban house, Patricia looked visibly nervous, her hands fidgeting with a thick manila envelope on her kitchen table. I've been carrying the guilt of this for over a decade, she said, her voice trembling slightly as she slid the envelope across the table. Your father made me swear a legally binding confidentiality agreement, but after seeing how they're treating you publicly now, I can't stay silent anymore. I'll face whatever consequences come. Inside the envelope were meticulously organized bank statements, trust documents, and legal papers dating back 15 years. As I carefully examined them, my hands began to shake uncontrollably. According to these comprehensive records, my grandfather Franklin had left a substantial inheritance specifically designated for my education and future, nearly $300,000 in education and trust funds, plus property investments, money I had never known existed. Your father was appointed as trustee, Patricia explained quietly, pouring us both tea she didn't touch. Franklin was explicit that you were to gain access when you turned 25. Instead, Douglas systematically transferred everything to Heather's accounts and various shell companies, using your inheritance to fund her lifestyle and her string of failed business ventures. The revelation struck me with the force of a physical blow. All those double shifts I'd worked to pay off my student loans from nursing school and medical administration courses. All those years of pinching pennies, living in a tiny apartment, eating ramen while studying. The 3 credit cards I'd maxed out during my final year of school. The ongoing monthly loan payments that still ate nearly a third of my income. And all that time, my parents had been sitting on my inheritance, money specifically meant for my education, while watching me struggle financially, even accepting my help with their mortgage payments when Douglas had medical expenses. There's more, Patricia continued, her professional demeanor cracking to reveal genuine anguish. Franklin also left several investment properties that were meant to be split equally between you and your sister. Your parents liquidated all of them using a power of attorney document they had you sign when you were 18. Do you remember? They told you it was for emergency medical decisions in case something happened while you were away at college. My stomach churned with nausea as the memory surfaced. I'd signed it without question, trusting them completely. That document, I now learned, had given them complete control over my financial interests and inheritance. They had systematically stolen what was legally mine while simultaneously watching me struggle financially, accepting my help with their expenses, and making me feel guilty for not contributing even more to the family. What made it even more sickening were the detailed financial statements showing regular transfers to Heather's accounts, cynically labeled as business development investments, money taken directly from my inheritance to fund her Instagram-ready lifestyle. Her luxury apartment, her brand partnerships, all those exotic trips they'd proudly shared and praised while dismissing my hospital administration career as settling for something safe. Why tell me now, after all these years? I asked Patricia, my voice barely maintaining its steadiness as anger and hurt battled within me. Because I've seen your mother's posts claiming you're mentally unstable and ungrateful, she replied, meeting my eyes directly for the first time. They're systematically trying to discredit you before you can possibly discover the truth about your inheritance. They've been embezzling from you for years, Megan. What they've done isn't just morally reprehensible, it's plainly illegal, and as their former accountant, I was unwillingly complicit. Everything suddenly made horrible, perfect sense. Their escalating attempts to paint me as unstable and unreasonable, my father's threats to cut me from a will that contained money that was already rightfully mine, their desperate need to maintain the carefully crafted narrative that Heather was the successful, deserving daughter while I was the difficult, mentally unbalanced one. With trembling hands but newfound resolve, I carefully packed the documents back into the envelope, my mind already processing the information with the analytical precision I'd developed during years of hospital administration work. "Thank you, Patricia," I said, my voice finding new strength. "I know exactly what I need to do now." Building the case, this wasn't just about a ruined Christmas or family exclusion anymore. This was about years of calculated deception, financial exploitation, and outright theft. And fortunately, my work in medical administration, with its emphasis on documentation, compliance, and audit trails, had uniquely qualified me to meticulously build a case that would make them face the consequences of their actions. With Patricia's comprehensive documents as my foundation, I spent the next week building an airtight case. I took time off work, using vacation days I'd been saving for a trip I could never quite afford. Working methodically at my kitchen table, I traced every unauthorized transfer, every misused power of attorney, every fraudulent document. I cross-referenced dates with my own financial records, the student loan applications, the credit card statements, the times I'd helped my parents with their expenses while struggling myself. I organized everything chronologically in 3 separate binders, building a timeline that showed the deliberate pattern of deception. I also contacted Marcus Jordan, a former prosecutor who now specialized in estate fraud and elder abuse cases. His reputation for handling complex family financial cases with both legal precision and sensitivity to family dynamics made him perfect for my situation. After reviewing my organized evidence for several hours in his office, Marcus looked up at me with a grim expression. "This is one of the clearest cases of financial exploitation I've seen in years," he confirmed, his deep voice carrying the weight of his former role as a prosecutor. "We absolutely have grounds to file criminal charges if that's the route you want to pursue. The power of attorney abuse alone is textbook fraud." I weighed my options carefully, considering the full impact of each potential path forward. Filing criminal charges would undoubtedly shatter my family's carefully maintained social standing, but the truth was, they had already destroyed our relationship through years of deception. Despite everything, I decided to give them one final opportunity to make amends. I messaged my parents and Heather, requesting a family meeting to resolve our differences. They responded with surprising eagerness, probably believing they could manipulate me back into my familiar role of silent compliance. We agreed to meet at my house the following Saturday morning. On the day of the meeting, I woke early and prepared meticulously. I arranged 3 identical leather folders on my dining table, one for each family member. Inside each was a comprehensive record of their financial fraud spanning 15 years, along with a formal letter from Marcus Jordan outlining their options in clear legal language: either transfer all remaining funds back to me with interest and sign a legally binding confession of their actions, or face criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and abuse of fiduciary duty. They arrived as a united front, my father's luxury sedan pulling into my driveway precisely at the agreed time. Through my window, I watched them approach my door, their expressions conveying a mixture of condescension and false concern. They clearly expected me to apologize for exposing their Christmas deception, to beg for reconciliation on their terms. Elaine started in the moment they entered my living room, not even waiting to remove her designer coat. "Megan, sweetheart, we're so relieved you've come to your senses. We can put this whole unpleasant episode behind us if you just..." I cut her off by silently sliding the folders across the table. "Before anyone says another word, I strongly suggest you read these documents. All of them." The transformation in their expressions as they reviewed the contents was remarkable. The color drained from my father's face as his banker's eyes recognized exactly what he was looking at. Heather's perfectly manicured hands began visibly trembling as she flipped through page after page of transfer records to her accounts. My mother tried desperately to maintain her composure, but the facade was cracking. "This is absolutely ridiculous," Elaine finally sputtered, attempting to reassert control. "You're actually trying to blackmail your own family. After everything we've done for you." "Blackmail?" I laughed, a cold, sharp sound that surprised even me. "No, Mother. I'm giving you a choice: return my inheritance with interest and formally acknowledge what you did, or I'll let the district attorney's office handle it." Patricia has already signed an affidavit and agreed to testify about her role in the financial arrangements. Patricia had no right, my father exploded, his banker's restraint evaporating. "She signed a confidentiality agreement. This is a breach of professional ethics. You had no right." I shot back, my voice rising with 14 years of suppressed anger. "You stole from me for years while watching me struggle with student loans. You used a fraudulently obtained power of attorney to sell properties that grandfather explicitly left for me. You funded Heather's Instagram perfect lifestyle with my inheritance while I worked double shifts to make ends meet." Heather's carefully applied makeup was now streaked with tears. "I didn't know where the money was coming from. They told me it was from Dad's investments. How was I supposed to know?" "Please stop lying," I replied with unnerving calmness, sliding specific documents toward her. "The transfers went directly into your personal accounts with memo lines like Megan's trust distribution. You cashed checks with my name crossed out and yours written in. You signed loan documents against my properties. You knew exactly what you were doing every step of the way." My mother shifted tactics, her charity committee skills of emotional manipulation surfacing. "Think about what this will do to our family's standing in the community. What will people say about us? About you? Do you really want to be known as the daughter who sent her parents to prison? You should have considered that before stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from your own daughter," I responded evenly, not rising to her bait. "You have exactly 48 hours to decide: either sign the confession, arrange the transfers of all remaining funds plus interest as calculated on page 17, or I'm taking everything to the police. The choice is yours." They left in a state of panic, my father practically dragging my sobbing sister and ashen-faced mother out the door. Within hours, the family group chat exploded with messages from relatives and family friends, all predictably taking their side without knowing the actual facts. Accusations of mental instability, ingratitude, and family betrayal flooded my phone. I silenced the notifications and remained calm in the eye of the storm. The truth and documented evidence were on my side. "The ball's in their court now," I told Marcus over the phone that evening, my voice steadier than I'd expected. "But something tells me they're not going to make the right choice." "They rarely do in these cases," he replied with the weariness of experience. Are you prepared for what comes next if they refuse? Yes, I answered without hesitation. They've already given me something invaluable, freedom from their manipulation. Just as served, the 48-hour deadline came and went without any response from my family. Just as I had predicted, they chose pride and denial over honesty and restitution. They made no attempt to sign the confession or arrange any transfers as outlined. Instead, according to Patricia's warning calls, they were frantically trying to cover their tracks, closing accounts, shredding documents, and even attempting to pressure her into retracting her statement with threats of legal action. What they didn't realize was that I had already submitted comprehensive copies of everything to the authorities through Marcus's office. The morning after the deadline passed, I formally filed charges with the district attorney's office. By mid-afternoon, the police were serving search warrants at 3 locations simultaneously. From my hospital office, I monitored the developments through texts from Marcus and local news alerts on my phone. My father was escorted from his bank in handcuffs, a shocking fall for a respected branch manager. Heather's social media business was raided, her equipment seized as assets purchased with misappropriated funds. My mother's carefully curated public image shattered as she was arrested during a high-profile charity committee meeting she had been live-streaming for her followers. The family group chat that had been so quick to condemn me days earlier exploded again, but this time with a dramatically different tone. Relatives who had dismissed my claims without evidence were suddenly silent as the details became public record. Those who had called me mentally unstable were now asking what exactly had happened. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about respected family's shocking fall from grace, detailing how the respected bank manager and his charity-involved wife had systematically defrauded their own daughter. My phone buzzed with a simple text from Patricia, "You did the right thing. Franklin would be so proud of your courage." She was right. This wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about justice and truth. As I watched my family's carefully constructed facade of perfection crumble under the weight of their own actions, I felt no joy or satisfaction, only a profound sense of relief. The truth was finally out, and with it came my freedom from decades of gaslighting and manipulation. Epilogue: 1 year later, I sat by the window in my new home in my grandfather Franklin's hometown, watching snow gently blanket the small town square. The court case had concluded 3 months ago with both my parents accepting plea deals to avoid longer sentences, agreeing to full financial restitution. Heather's influencer career had collapsed under the scandal, and she'd finally taken a regular job as a receptionist at a local gym. The perfect family image they had worked so meticulously to maintain for decades had dissolved overnight. Most of the extended family who had enabled their behavior for years stopped speaking to me entirely, but surprisingly, I found their absence created no emptiness in my life. Instead, I had built something far more valuable, a genuine support system of friends who valued honesty over appearances, colleagues who respected my professional dedication, and even a few distant cousins who reached out to apologize for their unwitting role in the family dynamics. Patricia came to visit last week, driving up from the city despite the threatening weather. Over hot chocolate in my cozy living room, she handed me a weathered photo album she discovered while organizing her home office. "I've been holding on to this for years," she explained. "Franklin gave it to me for safekeeping." Inside were dozens of photographs of my grandfather and me together, fishing trips, science fair projects, quiet moments reading books side by side, precious memories I'd almost forgotten in the painful years that followed. In one particularly touching photo, he was teaching me to fish at the lake near his house, both of us laughing at something now lost to time, my gap-toothed 7-year-old smile beaming up at him with pure adoration. "He always said you were the strong one," Patricia told me, her eyes misty with emotion. "He knew how they favored Heather, but he believed with absolute certainty that you would overcome it. That's why he left you the inheritance, not just to help you financially, but as a statement of his faith in you. I traced my finger gently over his kind, weathered face in the photograph, remembering the security I'd felt in his presence, how he'd always made me feel valued just as I was. He had tried to protect my future through that inheritance, and though it had taken years and come at a tremendous emotional cost, his final gift had ultimately provided something far more valuable than money: the courage to stand up for myself and the freedom to build a life defined by my own values rather than others' expectations. As I looked around at my new home, modest but completely mine, filled with medical textbooks and the watercolor paintings I'd finally allowed myself to create, I realized the profound truth that had emerged from this painful journey. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting free. Please, honey, Eleanor really needs you right now. Her condition's gotten worse. My mother's voice crackled through the phone, heavy with what I now know was fabricated concern. I slumped onto my bed in my small apartment on the outskirts of Chicago, surrounded by the luggage I'd meticulously packed for our family getaway to the lakeside resort. My body ached from the 12-hour night shift I'd just finished at the hospice center, but the excitement that had kept me going suddenly deflated into worry. Of course I'll stay, I replied without hesitation, rubbing my bloodshot eyes. Grandma Eleanor needs me more than I need a vacation. The words tumbled out automatically, the same instinctive response I'd given countless times before. Those words would come back to haunt me just hours later. My name is Olivia Hayes, and I'm 32 years old. All my life I've tried to be the responsible daughter, the one who could be counted on when things got tough. Just like I care for my hospice patients, I've always tried to care for my family, putting their needs above my own. But that dedication was about to be tested in ways I never imagined. I had been looking forward to this resort vacation for months. It was supposed to be our first real family gathering in years. Me, my parents Gregory and Victoria, my younger sister Natalie, and a few other relatives. I'd spent weeks juggling my shifts at the hospice, calling in favors from colleagues, and even taking unpaid leave to make this work. I'd stretched my already tight budget to buy new summer clothes, still paying off the nursing school loans that seemed never-ending. But when Mom called about Grandma Eleanor's worsening condition, I didn't think twice about canceling everything. That evening, as I was driving to check on my grandmother, my phone chimed repeatedly. I pulled into a gas station to check the notifications. It was a group message accidentally sent to me by Natalie. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the conversation, my stomach twisting into knots. The resort is gorgeous. So glad Olivia couldn't make it, always so serious and making everyone feel guilty, read one message from my mother. Then came a photo, my entire family standing on the deck of our family's lake house, champagne glasses raised in celebration. Finally relaxing without Nurse Buzzkill watching everyone's health choices, my sister had written, followed by laughing emojis. Best family vacation ever. #blessed #lakehouse life. I stared at my phone in disbelief, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. There they were, Mom, Dad, Natalie, my aunts and uncles, all smiling broadly in the sunshine of the resort. They had lied to me. They had deliberately excluded me from the family vacation, using my beloved grandmother as an excuse. The same grandmother whose medical appointments I'd been driving her to for years, while Natalie posted Instagram stories from boutique openings. When I finally arrived at Eleanor's modest house, my hands were still trembling as I knocked on the door. To my surprise, she opened it herself, looking tired but mostly well, certainly not in the dire condition my mother had described. Her face registered immediate concern when she saw my tear-streaked face. "Olivia, sweetheart, what's happened?" Eleanor asked, her nurse's instincts still sharp at 68. She pulled me into a warm embrace, the familiar scent of her chamomile tea bringing fresh tears to my eyes. I thought you were at the lake house with everyone." As we sat in her well-worn living room, surrounded by the medical books that had inspired my own career, the truth came pouring out: the resort vacation, the lies, the group messages revealing how my family really saw me. I showed her the photos that had shattered my world. "I don't understand," I said, my voice breaking as I organized her pillbox automatically, a Sunday routine I never missed. "Why would they do this to me? Why lie about you being worse?" I rearranged 6 night shifts and used up my vacation days. Eleanor's face darkened with a mixture of disappointment and dawning realization. She had always treated both her granddaughters equally, but my parents were a different story. Growing up in Chicago, I had watched them consistently favor my sister. When Natalie wanted a car for college, they bought her a new one. When I needed help with nursing school tuition, I had to take out loans that I'm still paying off. "Victoria called me last week," Eleanor revealed, her voice tight with controlled anger. "She said you were working too hard and needed a break from taking care of me." She shook her head in disbelief. "She mentioned you wouldn't go unless there was an emergency, but I had no idea they would actually tell you I was seriously ill." The resort accommodation wasn't cheap, nearly $3,000 per person for the lakeside suites. I had saved for months to afford my portion, picking up extra hospice night shifts when everyone else wanted to avoid them. Now I wondered if they had planned to exclude me all along, if my hard-earned money had somehow funded Natalie's spa treatments. "You know what hurts the most?" I said, organizing Eleanor's medications with the precision I'd developed caring for my patients. They didn't even need the elaborate excuse. They could have just told me they wanted a vacation without me. Instead, they used you, knowing how much I care about you and my patients, to manipulate me. Eleanor reached for my hand, her grip surprisingly strong, the same strength I'd admired throughout my childhood. "Sometimes people show you exactly who they are, even when they think they're hiding it," she said, the wisdom of her years as a head nurse evident in her voice. "The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge?" I looked up at her, seeing something fierce and determined in her eyes, the same expression she'd had when she encouraged me to pursue nursing after her own hospital stay years ago. Little did I know, Eleanor had been watching our family dynamics more closely than any of us realized, and she had plans of her own. As I sat with Eleanor in her living room, organizing her weekly medications, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a series of WhatsApp messages from my cousin Jenna, who clearly didn't know I'd been excluded from the resort vacation. She had meant to send photos to everyone in the family group chat, forgetting that I would see them too. "Look at the amazing sunset from the deck. Missing you all already. #FamilyTime, Jenna had written, attaching several pictures. My heart sank deeper with each swipe through the images. There was Natalie wearing the designer sundress I had helped her choose when she complained about having nothing to wear, even though her closet was 3 times the size of mine. My parents were lounging by the infinity pool, expensive cocktails in hand. The whole family gathered for a formal dinner on the terrace, all dressed up and laughing, without me. But what made my stomach truly twist was the gleaming watch on Natalie's wrist, a Cartier that I recognized immediately from last Christmas. It had been the highlight of our family gift exchange, presented to Natalie with great ceremony while I received a store-bought photo album of memories with Grandma. "She gave Natalie that $5,000 watch for Christmas, didn't she?" I asked, showing Eleanor the close-up photo where Natalie was clearly showing off the timepiece. While I got a $25 photo album and a lecture about how memories are more valuable than material things. The words felt bitter on my tongue. Eleanor leaned forward, squinting at the photo, her expression hardening as she recognized the watch. "That watch was purchased with the money I gave your mother specifically for both of you girls," she said quietly, her nurse's calm barely containing her anger. "I wanted you to have the medical journal subscription you've been wanting, the one that would help with your hospice certification." Then Eleanor revealed something that made my already exhausted body go cold. The resort vacation hadn't been paid for with my parents' money at all. 2 months ago, she had given them $15,000 to plan a family vacation, explicitly stating it was for all of us, a celebration of my completing 5 years at the hospice center. Instead, they had used my portion to upgrade their accommodations and book exclusive spa packages for Natalie's influencer content. "I've been watching," Eleanor continued, her voice heavy with disappointment as she absently rubbed her wrist where her blood pressure cuff usually sat. "For years, I've seen how they treat you differently. I kept hoping they would change, that they would realize what they were doing, but this is the last straw." She stood up slowly, the arthritis in her knees making her wince slightly, and walked to the small desk where she kept her medical records. From the bottom drawer, she pulled out a leather-bound journal and a thick manila envelope. "I wasn't going to show you this yet," she said, returning to her seat with careful steps, "but you need to know. I've been keeping records, every time they've favored Natalie, every time they've taken advantage of your kindness, every penny they've spent differently between you two. It started as notes in my nursing journal, old habits from my days as a head nurse, documenting everything. Inside the envelope were bank statements, photographs, email printouts, and Eleanor's meticulous handwritten notes spanning years. My hands trembled as I read through them, my clinical detachment, the same one I used when delivering difficult news to patients' families, completely failing me now. There were receipts for Natalie's private university tuition, paid in full, while I was still receiving collection notices for my nursing school loans. Photos of family trips I'd never known about because I was too busy with work to be included. Email exchanges between my parents discussing how to divert funds meant for both daughters. The truth was laid bare in Eleanor's precise documentation. The pattern of favoritism wasn't just in my head or a case of sibling jealousy, it had been calculated, consistent, and deliberate. "But why?" I whispered, the weight of years of gaslighting crashing down around me. All the times Victoria had said, "Don't be so sensitive, Olivia," or Gregory had insisted, "We've always treated you girls the same." Why did they always make me feel like I was imagining it? Like I was the problem for even noticing? My voice cracked as I organized Eleanor's pill containers, the Sunday routine giving my shaking hands something to focus on. Eleanor reached across the coffee table, her eyes flashing with a determination I'd rarely seen, the same look she'd had decades ago when fighting for better patient care standards at her hospital. "Because that's what people do when they know they're wrong," she said, her voice firm with the authority that had guided countless young nurses. "They try to make you doubt yourself. But not anymore, Olivia. Not anymore." The family vacation was scheduled to last 7 days. As I sat in my apartment the next morning, drinking cold coffee and going through Eleanor's documentation more carefully, my phone lit up with a WhatsApp message from Natalie. "Mom says you're spreading lies about us to Grandma. Why can't you just be happy for once instead of trying to ruin everything with your drama? Some of us are trying to create positive content here." I stared at the message, watching the blue check marks appear as she saw I'd read it. Instead of the usual immediate response where I would apologize or explain myself, I let the message sit. Minutes passed as the "Natalie is typing" notification appeared and disappeared repeatedly. "I see you reading this. Don't ignore me when I'm trying to fix your issues." Rather than responding directly to Natalie, I opened our family WhatsApp group. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard as I contemplated what to write. This wasn't my usual conflict-avoidant self. Years of hospice work had taught me that life was too short for artificial peace. Interesting how being lied to about Grandma Eleanor's health so you could all vacation without me somehow makes me the problem, I wrote, attaching one of the photos Jenna had sent. Even more interesting how the resort was paid for with money Grandma gave specifically meant to include me after my 5-year work anniversary. I added a second message before anyone could respond. "I've spent years arranging my hospice shifts around family events. only to be told I'm no fun or too serious. Meanwhile, Natalie gets a Cartier watch while I get a photo album because memories are priceless. Within minutes, my phone exploded with private messages and group responses. Family friends expressed shock. Cousins began messaging me privately, sharing their own observations of how I'd been treated differently over the years. We always wondered why you weren't in the family pictures. I thought it was strange when they bought Natalie that car but said they couldn't help with your nursing school. Then my father called. I almost didn't answer, but Eleanor's words echoed in my mind. Stand your ground, you've done nothing wrong. Take down those messages immediately, he demanded, his voice carrying the same authoritative tone he used with his real estate clients. You're embarrassing this family. Do you have any idea what this could do to your mother's social media presence? To my business reputation? No, Dad, I replied, surprising myself with my steady voice. You embarrassed this family when you lied about Grandma Eleanor being worse, when you took her money meant to celebrate my work anniversary, and used it to exclude me. That's not how it happened, he argued, his voice rising. We needed a break from your constant. My constant what, Dad? My constant caretaking? My constant juggling of hospital shifts to make family events? My constant effort to be part of this family despite how you treat me? The line went quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, lowered to something almost threatening. If you don't take down those messages and apologize privately to your mother, you'll regret it. You have no idea what's at stake here. Are you threatening me? I asked, the same calm voice I used with agitated patience settling over me. I'm warning you. Your mother and I have protected you all these years, kept certain things from you. If you want to play this game, fine, but remember, you're not the only one who can tell stories. The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone. What things had they protected me from? What stories could they possibly tell? I called Eleanor immediately. They're trying to scare me, I told her, pacing my small apartment. Dad says they've been protecting me from something but won't say what. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment, and I could hear her breathing change, the slight wheeze that always concerned me as a healthcare professional. Check your email, she finally said. I'm sending you something right now. It's time you knew everything. As I opened my laptop, my hands trembling slightly, I realized this was bigger than just a family vacation. Whatever was in that email would change everything, and judging by Eleanor's tone, my parents had good reason to be worried about what I might discover. My hands shook as I opened Eleanor's email. Inside was a scan of a document dated 25 years ago, a trust agreement with my grandfather's signature that made my breath catch in my throat. According to the paperwork, my maternal grandfather, a dedicated doctor who had made significant investments in medical technology, had left behind a special educational trust before he passed away. It was specifically created to fund medical education for any grandchild who chose to follow in his healthcare footsteps. The trust was worth over $500,000 and had grown substantially over the years. But there was more. A series of bank statements showed regular withdrawals from the trust, money that had been used to fund Natalie's business degree, her private university tuition, her semester abroad, and even portions of her Instagram-perfect wedding. All of it had been taken from what was supposed to be my medical education fund, money that should have covered my nursing school and specialized hospice certification. They've been stealing from you since you chose nursing school, Eleanor explained, her voice carrying the precise clarity she developed during decades as a head nurse. Victoria convinced the trustee, my brother Walter, to redirect your educational funds, claiming you'd decided against medical school. But as you can see from these records, they spent it all on Natalie and her influencer career aspirations. I stared at the screen, my voice barely audible when I finally managed to speak. All those extra night shifts, all those double shifts on holidays when no one else wanted to work. The numbers were staggering, over $200,000 had been siphoned from my medical education trust while I'd worked myself to exhaustion to pay off student loans for my nursing degree. Just then, another email notification appeared in my inbox. This time from Uncle Walter. I opened it with shaking hands. "Olivia, I can't keep quiet anymore. What they did with the vacation money was the last straw. I've attached documentation of every withdrawal they made from your grandfather's medical education trust. I'm so sorry, I should have stopped them years ago. The alcohol and my own weakness made me an easy target for Victoria's manipulation." The attached files revealed an even darker truth. My parents hadn't just spent my trust fund on Natalie, they'd been systematically hiding their mounting debt by diverting my grandfather's legacy. Their real estate business had been struggling for years, staying afloat only through creative accounting and the siphoning of trust funds. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked Eleanor, my hospice-trained composure finally breaking as I struggled to process the magnitude of the betrayal. "I only discovered the full extent recently," she replied, medical pragmatism in her tone. "When I confronted Victoria last month about the Christmas gifts disparity, she swore they'd make it right. That's when I gave them the vacation money with explicit instructions it was to celebrate your 5 years at the hospice. It was a test, Olivia. I wanted to see if they'd finally do the right thing, and they failed spectacularly." I took a deep breath, the same measured breathing I taught my terminal patients when discussing difficult options. "At least now we know the truth," I said, surprising myself with my calm. "Yes," Eleanor replied, "but more importantly, their failure has given us what we need, evidence. Walter has agreed to come clean about his role in the trust manipulation. Combined with my documentation and this vacation incident, we have a clear picture of what's happened." I felt a strange calm replacing my initial shock, the same focused clarity that came during medical emergencies at the hospice. "I need time to process this," I said. "There's more," Eleanor said, and I could hear the quiet determination in her voice, the same tone she must have used decades ago when advocating for her patients. "Check the second attachment in my email." I clicked it open and had to sit down. It was Eleanor's advance medical directive and power of attorney documents, recently updated. She had named me as her healthcare proxy and financial power of attorney, trusting me with both her medical decisions and the management of her assets, which, I now learned, included partial ownership in my father's struggling real estate company. "They're about to discover," Eleanor said firmly, "that their actions have consequences, not legal ones necessarily, but something perhaps more meaningful, the truth." The next morning, I met with Uncle Walter at a quiet coffee shop near my apartment. The dark circles under his eyes and slight tremor in his hands told me more about his struggle with alcohol than his words ever could. A retired lawyer whose career had been cut short by addiction, Walter handed me a leather portfolio with unsteady fingers. "These are copies of every document, every transaction," he said quietly, his eyes not quite meeting mine. "I've been keeping records all along, maybe out of guilt, maybe knowing this day would come. Your parents are going to be furious, Olivia. They've been calling me non-stop since I told them I was meeting you." "What are they saying?" I asked, flipping through the meticulously organized evidence of years of financial manipulation. "They're claiming it was all done to protect you," he said, finally looking up. "That you were too caring, too giving, that you would have just given the money away to patients or coworkers in need." He shook his head, disgust momentarily overcoming his shame. "But I found something else, something they don't know I discovered." He pulled out another document, this one showing a series of recent refinancing applications and transfer requests. "They're planning to declare bankruptcy, Olivia. They've been moving assets into Natalie's name, preparing to claim insolvency while preserving their lifestyle. The vacation wasn't just a getaway, it was preparation. They were testing whether they could maintain appearances while secretly dismantling their financial house of cards. My medical training kept my expression neutral, but I felt a coldness spreading through me. They're planning to lose everything while secretly keeping it all? Yes, and Natalie's fully involved. She's been setting up accounts for her influencer business that are really just shells to hide family assets. Just then, my phone buzzed with a WhatsApp notification. It was a voice message from Natalie. "I know Walter's talking to you right now. You've always been jealous of me, always playing the martyr with your important work while making everyone feel guilty for having fun. Well, guess what? By the time you figure everything out, it'll be too late. Mom and Dad have a plan, and your little nursing salary won't save them or you." I played the message for Walter, whose face grew even paler. "They're moving faster than I thought," he said, pulling out his own phone. "We need to contact them now, before this gets worse." I called Eleanor immediately. She answered on the first ring, as if she'd been waiting by the phone. "Victoria just called me in tears," she said without preamble. "Gregory's threatening to liquidate everything and move them to Arizona. Says he can't face the shame of bankruptcy here. Can you talk them down?" I asked, gathering my things. "Better. I've already called their bank and the real estate company's board. As partial owner, I've temporarily frozen major asset transfers pending a family discussion. But Olivia," she paused, her voice softening, "you need to come with me to talk to them. They need to hear from both of us." The medical power of attorney documents were filed yesterday. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "They don't know about that yet, do they?" "No, and that gives us time to approach this compassionately. Walter's documentation proves what happened, but this isn't about punishment. It's about healing a very broken family dynamic." As I gathered my things, another WhatsApp message chimed, this time from my mother. "You ungrateful child. After everything we've sacrificed for you, you'll regret this." But for the first time in my life, their emotional manipulation didn't pierce through me. I had truth on my side, and perhaps more importantly, I had nothing left to lose. My mind was surprisingly calm as I drove to my parents' house, the same focused clarity I felt when caring for patients in their final hours. Eleanor had suggested meeting there rather than at the company offices, believing a family matter should be handled in a family space. I arrived at my parents' sprawling suburban home just as they were loading suitcases into their Mercedes. Natalie was with them, frantically texting on her phone while occasionally glancing up nervously. They all froze when they saw my car pull into the driveway. "What are you doing here?" my father demanded, attempting to maintain his authoritative demeanor, but I could see the flicker of panic in his eyes. "I was about to ask you the same thing," I replied with the same quiet composure I used when explaining difficult medical realities to families. "Especially since you appear to be leaving town when we have serious family matters to discuss." "Family matters?" Natalie scoffed, though her voice wavered slightly. "Since when do you care about family? You're always too busy with your dying patients to bother with us." I didn't rise to her bait. Instead, I held up my phone, displaying the medical power of attorney documents. "Eleanor has entrusted me with her healthcare decisions and financial oversight of her assets, including her stake in Dad's real estate company. As her representative, I think we need to discuss the trust fund my grandfather set up for medical education that was diverted to Natalie's influencer career." My mother's face drained of color. Behind me, Walter's car pulled into the driveway, followed by Eleanor in her modest sedan. "You don't understand," my mother pleaded, her perfectly manicured hand clutching at her designer blouse. "Everything we did was for this family's image. You were always so ordinary with your practical career and sensible choices. We needed Natalie to elevate us." "No," I corrected her gently but firmly, using the same tone I used when redirecting confused hospice patients. "What you did was steal from me to create an illusion of wealth for Natalie, and now you were planning to declare bankruptcy while hiding assets. That's not protecting the family, that's fraud." I turned to my sister, seeing fear replace her usual contempt. "Was the resort vacation worth it, Natalie? Was pretending to be wealthy on Instagram worth destroying our family?" Eleanor and Walter approached as Natalie's composure finally crumbled. My father tried to guide her back toward the house, but the confrontation he'd avoided for decades had finally arrived. "Let's take this inside," Eleanor suggested firmly. "This family has spent enough time hiding the truth. It's time we all sit down and face it together." 3 months later, I sat in Eleanor's garden on a crisp autumn morning, organizing her weekly medications while we shared tea. The past months had revealed even more than we'd suspected. My parents' real estate business had been struggling for years, kept afloat by increasingly desperate financial maneuvers and diverted trust funds. They weren't facing criminal charges. Eleanor had decided against pursuing legal action, but the consequences had been significant nonetheless. The truth had forced my father to restructure his business completely, with transparent financial practices now overseen by a board that included Eleanor. My mother had retreated from social media, her carefully curated image impossible to maintain in the face of financial reality. Natalie had moved to Minneapolis, finally forced to support herself without our parents' financial backing. Her influencer career had transformed into a more authentic version focused on financial transparency and rebuilding after family trauma. Her last message to me had been a lengthy, tearful voice note of apology, but some wounds run too deep for words alone to heal. "You know," Eleanor said, sipping her tea while watching a chickadee at her bird feeder, "your grandfather would be proud of how you handled everything. He always said caring for others reveals people's true characters far more than money ever could." I nodded, thinking of the changes I'd helped implement at the hospice center using a portion of the recovered trust funds. We'd established a scholarship program for nursing assistants wanting to advance their education and created a more supportive environment for both patients and staff. "I never wanted any of this," I admitted, adjusting Eleanor's blood pressure cuff. "I just wanted to be treated as worthwhile, to matter as much as Natalie did." Eleanor reached over and squeezed my hand, her nurse's eyes assessing me with the same care I showed my patients. Sometimes life's greatest blessings come disguised as its greatest challenges. You've turned their betrayal into something healing, not just for yourself, but for them too. She was right. Through this painful process, I had found my voice, my boundaries, and most importantly, my self-worth. That resort vacation they took without me, it hadn't been the getaway of a lifetime after all. It had been the beginning of truth-telling, and the start of a more authentic life for all of us. Epilogue. Last week, Natalie visited Eleanor for the first time without our parents. I was there too, our first time alone together in years. The conversation was awkward at first, but gradually eased as we helped Eleanor with her garden and medication routine together. "I never understood why they favored me," Natalie admitted as we washed dishes side by side. "But I see it clearly now. They saw you as strong enough to handle their neglect, while they thought I needed their constant support." "It wasn't fair to either of us," I replied, passing her a plate to dry. "They underestimated you and exploited me." Eleanor watched us from the kitchen table, a smile playing at her lips as she saw her granddaughters finding their way back to each other, not through expensive gestures or social media moments, but through the simple act of caring for her and each other. As Natalie and I walked to our cars that evening, she hesitated before opening her door. "I'm sorry I was such a terrible sister," she said quietly. "I don't know if we can ever be close, but I'd like to try." I thought about all the patients I'd cared for who never got the chance to reconcile with family. "Life's too short to refuse second chances," I said finally. "We can start small." That night, I received a WhatsApp message from Natalie, not a glossy, filtered photo, but a simple text, "Thank you for today. Same time next week?" It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning.